Welcome back to the AKA Catholic Podcast. I'm your host, Louis Verrecchio, and I am thrilled to be joined by my friend and colleague, Mario Derksen from Novus Ordo Watch. Mario, welcome aboard.
Well, thank you very much. Greetings, everyone, and hello, Louis.
Yeah, great to have you. We should do this more often, Mario, but the thing that precipitated our get-together today is an event that took place back in 1995 in Brazil, and the person that we're focused on is Robert Prevost, the American Pope, if you will.
Yeah.
And this is a story that broke recently, Mario, but it's one that you've been working on for some time.
Yes,
When did you start digging into this Pachamama worship scandal?
Yeah, so Leo XIV, whose real name is Robert Francis Prevost, was found to have participated in a ritual in which Pachamama was worshipped. And this was in Sao Paulo, Brazil in January of 1995. So yes, it was over 30 years ago, but it really doesn't matter how long a time has passed. What matters is what happened there, what he did, and what this says about him. And yesterday, LifeSite broke this story, and the images that we're talking about, in which you can see Prevost and everybody else there in a ritual worshiping Pachamama, which is an indigenous pagan fertility goddess, essentially. Another name for Pachamama is Mother Earth, and also Gaia is another common name. And Pachamama, I think, is the Quechuan, name for it, from the culture there in Peru and Bolivia. And so it is thoroughly a pagan nature worship is what this is, and a worship of the earth. And this ritual was conducted as part of a symposium, a conference that took place in January of 1995, right there in Sao Paulo, Brazil, on eco-theology. Okay, this is a kind of a liberation theology kind of thing, and in which they try to mix theology, Catholic theology, Novus Ordo theology, with paganism, with concern for the environment and so forth. And, in 2015, the false Pope Francis released the encyclical Laudato Si on ecology, and there you see a lot of that thought that was originally developed in the 1980s, probably in the 70s already, with regard to combining a Catholic spirituality and theology with these issues of liberation theology, and specifically the environment. Now, this story, like I said, broke yesterday with a report from LifeSite, who had invited, John Henry Weston at LifeSite had invited Father Charles Murr on his program, and apparently Father Murr had done research on this. What LifeSite didn't know is that I had also been doing research on this for months, actually, and I simply hadn't gotten all my ducks in a row yet. I always like to make sure that before I come out with a big story like that, you better make sure you have every I dotted and T crossed and everything. I wanted to basically present research as perfect as possible, or as well done as possible, so that there'd be no loopholes and everything. And LifeSite simply beat me to it with releasing this information. And so when I saw yesterday that they had just published that, I said, okay, well, now I can't hold back. I can't wait anymore. Now I'm going to have to release what I have, at least the first part of it, the most important part with the pictures and so on. And I actually have, I found a little more still that was not yet covered by LifeSite. So if this topic interests people, I hope they'll stick around, because we'll have a lot to present. And so yesterday I also published an article with the documentation at novusordowatch.org/wire. That's the blog, the Novus Ordo Wire. And that post, for those who are watching this video now who want to find the post, it's entitled "Photos Surface Showing Robert Prevost, Leo XIV, Participating in Pachamama worship ritual in Brazil in 1995. And it's dated March 18th, 2026. And of course, you're going to have all the links to the stuff that we present here in the description of the video and the show notes. And let me see, where was I going with this? Well, I guess I can just...
Well, Mario, before you start,
yeah,
viewers, you have to stay tuned because Mario brought the receipts, a lot of them. You're going to be impressed by the amount of research that went into this. But I want to ask you, Mario, how did this first hit your radar screen?
Oh, yeah.
And when did it first hit your radar
I think
screen?
it was August or September of last year. Somebody contacted Novus Ordo Watch through Facebook and said, hey, obviously I'm going from memory now, friend of mine, and I think it was Ecuador. He has this book on eco-theology, and look what he found, right? And so he sends me some scanned pages, and in one of them, on one page is a picture apparently showing Robert Prevost, and then there was another picture also with what looks to be Robert Prevost, and it shows him in a circle with others, and the caption of the photo in this book says that this is a worship ritual for Pachamama. And of course I believed what I was sent, but that wasn't good enough, obviously. I figured, okay, well, I can't just go by, I don't know this man from Adam. I have to verify this. Is this really true? Because if it is, this is a huge story. But if it's false, or if there's some misunderstanding here, then you have a lot of egg on your face and you'd be guilty of calumny and so on. So you better get this right. So I did what anybody would have done, is I tried to obtain a copy of the book, and I did. And here it is. Okay. This is written in Spanish. Okay. It's called Eco-Teología, Eco-Theology, una perspectiva desde San Agustín, a perspective from St. Augustine. And so what this is, you can see here's the back cover. This book contains the proceedings, the acts of the fourth symposium of the fourth symposium of the general topic for each of these conferences is rereading the thought of St. Augustine in light of whatever, basically liberation theology or whatever social issues, poverty, the environment, whatever, migration, discrimination, those things, right? And every few years they had a conference, I think they still do, on one of those issues, and this is published and hosted by the Augustinians. So that's why they're very interested in bringing St. Augustine into the picture, although, of course, it's a manipulation of St. Augustine, using his ideas for modernism, for modernist theology. And so I obtained a copy of this book, and so this was the fourth such symposium and this one was held in Sao Paulo, Brazil, January 23rd through the 28th, 1995. And the location is not always the same. They'll hold it in these meetings, these conferences, and in other countries as well. And I think there was one in Panama and one in Mexico. I think one in Bolivia, maybe. And in any case, I obtained this book and I found everything exactly the way it had been told to me. And I want to show, first of all, here, this is what you see when you open the book, right? The title page. And you can see here, what you see first is, this is just a group picture, right? All the participants in that conference. And even there, you can see Robert Prevost right there. So here is the table of contents, and you got a foreword, an introduction, or whatever, and then a lot of the the speeches, the lectures that were given at that conference, right? The transcripts, essays, and so on. Here you find a picture of everybody holding hands, apparently during the Our Father. This is the Novus Ordo worship service that they celebrated in a backyard somewhere. Right there is Mr. Prevost, the Reverend Prevost. He was a Novus Ordo priest at the time. Okay, he was not yet a bishop or anything. And I tried in my research to find the actual location of this and like pictures of it, like what it looks like now, just to verify. I have not yet been able to find that. Okay, then on page 10, is where we find this picture. And again, we'll look at this in detail in just a moment. All right, so here you see Robert Prevost. This is the table they were using as an altar for the Novus Ordo, quote-unquote, mass, right? And here they are gathered in a circle. This gentleman right here, where is he? Right here is the, whatever you call that, the pagan offerer of the Pachamama sacrifice. And it says here, now you got to remember, this book is being published or was published by the Augustinians. Okay, this is not some sedevacantist publishing this or some traditionalist. This is just the Augustinians publishing their stuff. Okay, it says here, celebración del rito de la Pachamama, Madre Tierra. Okay, celebration of the Pachamama ritual, Mother Earth. Okay, so it says that even in the caption that that's what's happening, and you can hear this pagan priest or whatever he is, he's offering something there. He's lifting up something in the air. So that's the image, and then there are more pictures, most of them irrelevant to the Pachamama ritual, but there is also mention of Pachamama in the book. Now, when I obtained this book, a copy of this book, I, not being proficient in Spanish, I went to a friend who was a native Spanish speaker and had him look through it, make sure that there isn't some kind of caveat, some kind of information that would relativize, or in some way would neutralize what appears to be a scandalous act of public act of idolatry, or semi-public. Now, this conference took place in Brazil, as we said. Now, in Brazil, they speak Portuguese, okay? The book I just showed you was published in Mexico in Spanish. Turns out that it is but a translation from the original book, which is this one right here. Ecoteologia Agostiniana. Well, I don't know I don't speak Portuguese, so I may have butchered that, okay? This book is a little bit thinner, and it does not have any pictures in it, okay? But this is the original Portuguese. And it was published the same year, and it was published in, I think, in Sao Paulo. Yeah. And most of the contents are the same, just in Portuguese, except this book right here adds a lot of other stuff, okay? And of course, it has photos from the event, which the Portuguese original didn't. So this just to show that, you just want to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row, and then whenever there is a translation involved, you always want to go to the original, of course, right? So that's the background here. Then I didn't realize right away that this was just a translation. Okay. Now, of course, it has nothing to do with, it doesn't change the photos, but still, you want to get to the original source if there is one. And
Mario, a question for you: are there any words in these books attributed to Prevost? Did he speak at the conference?
Not that I've seen. No, not that he did not. No, he was at the time. So he had been ordained in the Novus Ordo, I think, in 1982 as a priest. And so this was 95. He'd been a priest for a while. He was a missionary at the time in Peru. Now, Peru is not Brazil, but so he must have traveled to that conference as part of his, well, it was an Augustinian conference, so it makes sense that, and it was for Latin America, it makes sense that he would attend. And so, unfortunately, I was not able to find like the attendee list of the conference. That would have been great, all right? But I did everything I found as far as Prevost and the Augustinians. Everything I found was consistent with him being there. In other words, nothing excluded the idea that he could have been there. In fact, you can see here that this was, the compiler, like you might say the editor of this book is John J. Leyden, okay, O.S.A. He is an Augustinian from Canada, and he's still alive, and he would probably be the best person to ask to verify that Prevost was there, because he would surely know. I don't know who Father Murr spoke to, but Father Murr over at LifeSite says that he has confirmation from as many as 3 Augustinians who recognized, who basically confirmed independently of each other that, yes, this looks like Robert Prevost. And there's no question that it's him. The pictures are pretty clear, and he was in Latin America at the time, so it was consistent with his mission. And it does, here in the first pages, this is like how they sometimes print thank yous and stuff, that this is like one of those things where they're thanking all the people for attending. This was written by this John Leyden. And it mentions Chicago in there, okay, which is where Prevost is from, like the Augustinians from Chicago. So, like I said, it is consistent with Robert Prevost. The information I found is consistent with him being there. Nothing that I've seen refutes the idea that he was there, and the pictures clearly show that it's him. And maybe with that, we can just go actually look at the pictures, the scanned photos, and then I'll show what other photos I found. And let me just pull that up. Yeah. So, yeah. Did you have any questions at this point?
No, but I got to tell you, I mean, it is impressive that you went the extra mile to make sure that this indeed took place, that he was truly there. And I think, look, this is a settled matter now. I believe we can move forward with the assumption that you've done your homework. That was him. Yeah. He was there. And of course, now that there's a scandal brewing around this event, I wonder if there's anyone that's holding out hope that there will be any kind of a statement from the conciliar headquarters denying that he was there. Yeah. My guess is you're not going to hear a word out of them. They'll ignore this until it goes away.
LifeSite said that they're still waiting for comment from the Vatican. I don't know, maybe somebody like Diane. Well, there is a press conference tomorrow, March 20th, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe somebody can ask, maybe Diane Montagna or Michael Haynes or, Edward Penton maybe can go there and ask the press spokesman, what's his name, Matteo Bruni, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there's any comment on that, because, look, obviously people are going to say, oh, but that was 30 years ago. Yes, it was 30 years ago. And, but it did happen. And is it possible that Prevost repented? That, did he go to confess? Of course it's possible. But now that this is out in the open, now that it's a public scandal, he now has to address it and say, hey, yes, this was wrong. I sinned and I went to confession. He has to do that now, if that's what happened.
Sure. I think the one big problem that we're going to run into, even if he feels compelled to do that, let's say that he did, repent of his idolatry.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you. If he did, he should make a public statement for the good of the faithful, just so that they understand.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing that I believe would prevent him from doing that, if nothing else, is that would be a condemnation of his esteemed predecessor, who engaged in something very similar at the
Jorge Bergoglio.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. I would imagine that the Vatican is going to try very hard to get out of that, and maybe, see if they don't have to comment on anything. But we'll see. There, in my opinion, even if they address it, it's certainly not going to make any big deal about it. But that's just my opinion. Okay. All right. Can everybody see it? Beautiful. Okay. So I'm just going to go through these images. So this is again the original book that does not contain any pictures, but it does contain the proceedings of that conference that took place in Sao Paulo in 1995. Okay. Then here, this is the Spanish translation. There is no English translation. But, Spanish and Portuguese, that's all they speak in Latin America, so that's all they need. All right, then let's go to the image in the very front of the book. I believe it is it this one right here? Okay, this is the frontispiece, so to speak, this one here. And let me see, is it big enough for the screen?
It looks pretty good to me. Now, just a word to our viewers, if you're scanning this photo looking for Roman collars, you're probably wasting your time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at a conference on eco-theology, don't bother, Okay. So Robert Prevost, where is he? So in this picture, he's not that easy to see, but he's there for sure. Right here. Okay. That's where he is. So his head is partially blocked, but, yep, that's him right there. And I honestly, after seeing all the images that we have, I don't think any reasonable person is going to deny that it's him, or at the very least, it looks just like him. All right.
Well, let's be honest, Mario, there's nothing out of keeping with his character that would move someone to say, oh, no way, he would never participate in such a thing.
Right.
Clearly.
And, I mean, given the manifest evidence that it's him, if perchance it should indeed be not him, well, then it's now, the burden of proof is now with the Augustinians to show, oh no, it was not him, it was actually somebody else, and this is who the person was. I mean, that's how it is. Obviously, yes, you have to meet a high standard if you're going to accuse someone of something so wicked as idolatry, but the standard is not impossibly high. Okay. At some points, like, okay, no, we've got the evidence now. If anybody wants to deny it, the burden of proof is on that person. Then if we go to this page in the book, this is page Roman numeral 20. See, it says right here, whoops, sorry, Celebración Eucarística en el Jardín de la Casa de Retiro, Sao Paulo, Brazil. Okay, Eucharistic celebration in the Garden of the Retreat House, Sao Paulo, Brazil. Right? So this is their Eucharistic celebration. And I mean, aren't they all just so beautifully dressed here? You can see the presbyter there right behind the table, and to his left is Robert Prevost. Right? Seems pretty clear. And so that is the same table you're going to see in the other picture that I'm going to show now, which is the one released by LifeSite. And there it is, right? The Pachamama ritual. Again, that's stated in the caption. Ritual or rite of Pachamama, Mother Earth, which is an agricultural rite, or an agricultural rite offered by the cultures of the South Andeans in Peru and Bolivia. All right. So what do we see here? It's still the same garden, still the same people. The presbyter that was at the Eucharistic celebration earlier appears to be kneeling back there behind the table, or maybe he's sitting. And there's Prevost, clearly kneeling. And there's this guru type of this indigenous man who's performing the pagan ceremony, or maybe that's what he seems to be doing. And then there's this lady to his right. She's holding a bottle. We're going to see that bottle again later. And this gentleman here, he seems to be wearing some kind of indigenous vestment of sorts. And we're gonna see that in color in just a moment.
Now, Mario, before you move on, some commenters on social media have pointed out that in this photo and others, we don't find that Pachamama statue that became so notorious during the
That's right.
Amazonian Synod. What do you
Yeah.
have to say about that?
Yeah. So when you look, what I would encourage people to do is look at images on websites like Shutterstock.com, for example, which are websites that sell stock photos, and just there are a lot of pictures there. And look for Pachamama rite, Pachamama ritual, Mother Earth worship, and look at what you see there, because those are real pictures of indigenous people worshiping Pachamama. And what you're going to find is that there's typically not a statue associated with Pachamama worship, because Pachamama to them is the earth. So they're worshiping the earth. And sometimes that is, Pachamama is displayed is displayed as a woman that basically holds the entire planet in her lap, so to speak. There's all kinds of those images, and we can look at them in a minute. But I just wanted to point that out for the moment. And I'd also like to add that don't assume that you're going to see the same thing that you saw in the Vatican in 2019 at the start of the Amazon Synod. And I'll explain why later, but don't be looking for that, because I know that that's pretty much in people's consciousness. When they hear Pachamama worship, they think of that wooden statue. And that may have something to do with Pachamama, but at least up until that point, it is not a figure that was known to be Pachamama and was worshipped. But more on that later.
That's a great explanation, Mario. And you can't blame people, I suppose, because for most ordinary Catholics, myself included, my first exposure to even the concept of Pachamama came in 2019.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I find interesting is damning as the images from that 2019 event were with that statue and the honor given to it, as damning as that was, this photograph is even more damning in that the caption literally says Pachamama. But what the Vatican did in 2019, one of the initial excuses was, oh, that statue is a representation of the Blessed Mother. Well, they don't have that excuse now. It was a lame excuse then. But
if I remember correctly, that excuse was given by bloggers, journalists. It was not the Vatican, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
The Vatican,
whoever it was.
Paolo Ruffini, I believe, because he was asked about, what is this? No. That's right. I remember now. He specifically said, no. It's absurd to say that was the Virgin Mary. He said it's a statue representing life, fruitfulness, fertility, whatever. Okay. But the claim that, this was Our Lady, this was like the Blessed Virgin Mary, that came from bloggers, and it also. It's true that during the ceremony in the Vatican in 2019, there was somebody, just before the statue was presented to Francis, somebody can be heard saying, Our Lady of the Amazon. Okay? But we should not assume that necessarily means the Blessed Virgin Mary. But what exactly they understood that statue to be would probably be a very interesting subject for a separate video. I'm still researching that on the side, but not every lady is the Blessed Mother. Let's just keep that in mind too.
The bottom line is, though, there's no wiggle room out of this photograph and the caption that goes with it. No wiggle room at all.
Right. So here I have a picture is a little more, only the picture without the caption. Just want to zoom in a little bit. Now, some people, I understand that people who, think highly of Leo and believe he's the Pope and they want to be loyal to the Pope, I understand that they're going to try to look for reasons to dismiss this. I get it. But not everything they come up with is even credible. Okay, so for example, somebody said, well, actually, even if this was Pachamama worship, it looks like he's just kind of sitting there reading a book. Okay, or I mean, not sitting there, kneeling there reading a book. It looks like he's not really necessarily participating. Well, when you look closely, it's true that at first sight it does look like he's holding a book, but as a matter of fact, even though he's looking down, you can't see him holding anything. What you see here, what looks like he's holding a book, is actually a book placed on the edge of this altar table. Okay? And we know that because there's another picture, which I'm going to show in a moment, where he is, where he has changed, Prevost has changed his position, and yet the book has not changed position at all. So you can see it's, I don't know if this is visible, for what you're seeing, Louis?
Looks very clear to me. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Does. Okay, great. So that this is placed on the edge of the table. He's not holding it. Maybe he's reading something. Maybe there's a pamphlet, or something, a piece of paper that they were given to explain the rite. I don't know. I mean, nobody else seems to be holding anything, and I don't know why he's looking down, and it doesn't really matter. That's the ceremony, and he's there participating.
Now, are we to assume this was his first and last rodeo with Pachamama? I mean, he spent so much time in Peru. My guess would be that this just happens to be the event that was recorded. The photographs that I doubt that this was his first and last trip, but who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? Well, we can look at this image also in color. Okay. Or it's technically not exactly the same image. It's slightly different, a slightly different moment in time, because you can see, here you have this fellow lifting his right arm, and here he's actually apparently making an offering. But you see Prevost here, the resolution of this picture is not very good. But, here's still Prevost still looking down, and yeah, you can see here again the altar with the book placed on it. And then comes another color picture. I'll explain in a moment why I have color pictures here, where those are coming from. This is absolutely damning. I mean, look at this, right? Here they all are bowing to the ground with their head touching the grass. Looks just like Muslims do, right? But Muslims, Muslims use a rug or whatever, but they also touch their heads to the ground. So this is what they're all doing. And if you look at what Robert Prevost is doing, looks like he is just in the process of getting down to the ground, right? So this does not look like, merely passive, I'm just observing. No, he's doing what everybody else is doing, right? And you can see this bottle here in the middle. People will say, well, what's this bottle doing there? Well, that's part of, probably it contains either soil or some kind of a drink offering. Could even include alcohol, because if you research Pachamama worship, alcohol is something that they do offer to Mother Earth, right? And that's what's happening here. There is another image here. This is interesting from a very different angle. So here we see this pagan priest, and you can see this is what I called the vestment earlier. Don't know what it is, but looks like he's dressed for the occasion, for his role. And then there's this lady assisting him, and I can't tell what she's doing. Could be, maybe this is salt or something. It looks like she's holding maybe a spoon or some other utensil. Maybe she's sprinkling something into this mixture. I don't know. I don't know what it is. And then there's also this photo here, and this must have been right in the very beginning when they all marched out of their retreat house and went ahead to the garden to make their offering to Pachamama, right? And they're all joining this priest person with the assistant. All right, let me see what else I have. Oh, this one. Maybe I should explain. Let me explain first where those. Oh, here's another one of Prevost. I I can't remember now if we looked at this one in color or not, but
Not in color. No, this
not
is
in
the first
color.
one.
Okay, so
Yeah.
oh, that's right. This was the picture in the book, right? And here's this image in color, which also shows Prevost. It's a very, very bad resolution, though, but I did want to show it in color. Okay, so where are these color pictures coming from? Well, they're not in the book, right? And they're not in the book. They are screenshots from a YouTube video that I, by God's providence, happened to find. I found that the Augustinians in Latin America, Augustinians, the organization of, I think they're called the Organization of Augustinians of Latin America. Well, they have a YouTube channel, okay? And they have a video. Maybe I should stop sharing my screen here. Hello. They have a YouTube channel, and in there's a number of videos from times past where they just a compilation of various conferences and events they had. And sure enough, there was one video that's still up, unless they've taken it down in the last few hours. But you can access that on YouTube, and we'll put a link in the description of the video that shows images from different, I don't know if it was all the same. I think it's from different conferences over the years. And it also happened to include those color pictures from what was clearly the conference, the symposium in Brazil in 1995. So I was very happy to find that. And that's where they're from. And I think we should take a look at that video now. Yeah. So what we have there it is. Okay, this is just a slideshow. Okay. But it shows that, no, this stuff isn't AI Oh, there's more.
Yeah, that's a photo we didn't see, Mario.
Yeah, that was Prevost also. There it is. Ah, more. Okay, so that is the source for these color images that I had. Wow, beautiful. I mean, not beautiful, but yes, and here they're in procession, probably for their Eucharistic celebration. It's, oh, this is Leiden. Father Leiden. I don't know if he might be a Monsignor at this point. Yeah, I think you can stop it there because I think we've seen most of the, yeah. So this is where I got these pictures. And so I just want to, demonstrate that this is not AI generated. This is not a hoax. There's, no one is being deceptive here. This is the Augustinians themselves published this stuff.
And that was some groovy music, though, you have to say.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see if I have, okay, yeah, so there was two more images in black and white that I want to show, but I first want to show where I got them from. And that is the bullet. So the OALA, this organization here, they publish a type of magazine. I forget if they still do, or at least they did then. That was, I think, once a quarter they would publish that. It's called Bulletin, right? Basically bulletin. And the January through March edition of 1995 has pictures also of what happened there in Sao Paulo. And they also have a little bit of a report or a story about it. Now, unfortunately, it's in Spanish, and I don't have it sufficiently translated yet, but I just wanted to show where these other pictures are that I want to present, and I'm going to share my screen again. So this is, first let me go to the very top here. This is the bulletin. You can see it's the January through March edition, 1995. And there is the big group photo. This photo was taken at another conference in Panama, February of 95. So it looks like Mr. Prevost was attending a number of conferences there. You can see him right here. I don't know if my cursor is visible, but basically to the very right, or almost to the very right in the pretty much the first row. You can see him there wearing glasses. And even though that picture is from the symposium in February, there is a story about the January symposium, and it's found here on printed page number 24. In the PDF file, it's page 21. And because it says right here, Simposio Taller sobre Ecoteología Agustiniana. Okay. So this is, and here it says Sao Paulo, so the 23rd through the 28th of January. So it's a report or reflection or whatever about this very symposium where the Pachamama ritual took place. And this is very grainy, but again, this is published by the Augustinians. All right. So, and you can find that online still. We're going to put the link in the description of the video, and you can see Robert Prevost right there. Are you able to see my cursor?
I can. Yep. It's light.
Okay. So he's once again on the right of center and pretty much in the middle, but to the right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to publish a translation of what this says on the Novus Ordo Watch blog. Okay, well, here you have that other picture, or yet another picture from that same ceremony with that same presbyter doing his Pachamama worship thing. And you can't see Prevost. Whoops, you can't see Prevost there now, but that's okay. You can at least see more of the ceremony, and he's once again, who knows what he's doing. And you can actually see a photographer in the back there on the very left, on the far left. So there are pictures available. Hopefully we can get more of them. All right, so those pictures are available too. Now I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Yes, so thus far, I think all the images we want to share, or we have to share. I would say now, are there any questions? But of course, this isn't a live program, so I'm afraid I can't take any live questions from the audience. But I would just say, for those who are still skeptical because they've been told that, well, what happened in the Vatican in 2019, that was not really Pachamama, that was just a big misunderstanding, it was not idolatry, it was just whatever indigenous veneration of the Blessed Virgin or something like that. I would just say, just don't even, like, forget about, for the moment, forget about what happened in 2019 in the Vatican. This, what you're looking at here, maybe it has nothing to do with it. Like, in other words, even if it should turn out that there was actually no Pachamama being worshipped in the Vatican in 2019, what happened in Brazil in 1995 was definitely the worship of Mother Earth. Okay? So don't confuse the two. This is entirely independent of that. And I also want to say that, I saw somebody say online, well, you shouldn't be relying on, what Father Murr produced. And I said, I'm not. It was entirely independent. Until yesterday, I had no idea that LifeSite was working on this or that Father Murr was working on this. Okay. So this is all straight from, the Augustinians. Right.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, Mario, you have two independent sources working unbeknownst to one another on the same story, which kind of doubles the credibility of everything that we've talked about. And I think you're being extraordinarily kind in addressing those who may still be skeptical. Because, look, let's be honest, the only way that there's room for skepticism here is if somebody is just so drenched in Leophoria that they're going to defend him no matter what. Even if they saw him in person strangling a puppy, they would come up with a way to defend the man.
Yeah. Yeah. And interestingly enough, the story has not been picked up by a whole lot of blogs or journalistic outlets yet, at least. I mean, okay, it's only been about 24 hours as of the time of this recording, but yeah. Now, Michael Lofton, I saw, had a video on it. He did some kind of a show on it, but it's members only, so I don't know. By making it members only, of course, he's making sure that practically no one will see it.
Right. And you can only imagine the demographics of his membership. Did they really need a video to give them a way to allow Leo to wiggle out of this thing? Probably not. But
Yeah, I
I'm
don't
assuming
know.
that's what they received in that video. But maybe he'll open it up in days to come.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, Taylor Marshall said something upon being asked to comment, I guess, by LifeSite, which I find interesting that LifeSite, you know, they need commentary from Taylor Marshall on this. You know, this is the thing. But Taylor Marshall is, you know, right or wrong, he's considered an influencer. And of course, he is influential. There's no question about that. I just have to chuckle a little bit and like, okay, look, you're saying that the man who's the Pope now, you just provided evidence he engaged in idolatrous worship in 1995. It's Taylor Marshall. Why does he need to weigh in on this? You know. To tell his influencers now, rather his audience now, what to think. Is that the point that we're at? You know, where he has to kind of make clear to everyone, hey, this is what you ought to think about this, or this is what you ought not to think about it. I don't know. I just thought it was odd that they're reaching out to, you know, a layman in Texas for comment, you know, oh, what does this mean now? Or what, you know, what's your reaction to that? Well, why don't they ask the Vatican? Actually, to their credit, they did. They just haven't gotten any response there. But it would have made more sense, in my opinion, to ask some kind of an influential cleric or someone who's a recognized authority on something, instead of, as Taylor Marshall likes to call himself, a dad with a webcam.
Right. I'll make a prediction here. If this story does catch fire, and it really should. Look, you have the man claiming to be the Holy Roman Pontiff breaking the First Commandment, for crying out loud. I mean, if this doesn't get attention, then, you know, humanity's in worse shape than we thought. But here's the thing. If it does catch fire, I'm going to tell you right now what's going to happen. Taylor Marshall's going to invite that Alexander Shugwell, or whatever his last name is.
Shugwell, yeah.
Yeah, he'll be back on the show, and they'll relive the glory days, and they'll talk about this thing, and you know, it'll be a nice fundraising opportunity for all concerned, I'm sure.
Oh,
is that judgmental? I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I don't know, but it's probably not. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I don't think he's going to bring on Alexander Chugwell, although I would be interested to know what he has to say about it. You know, but I should probably, I don't know, do we want to look at some objections, or can you think of some objections?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Look, we're not taking live questions, but I think you started to touch on the first one. It's all these years ago. We're talking over 30 years ago now. So what does it really matter? Are you then actually to blame, you, LifeSite, Father Murr, for stirring up this controversy over something that happened so long ago, when he wasn't even a bishop, for crying out loud?
Well, that's right. Oh, it's just an act of apostasy, you know.
That's all.
No, well, you know, there is, the problem is that not only are we talking about the personal sins of an individual, which obviously could have been repented of, right? But it is, first of all, this was not something behind closed doors. It was in a kind of a semi-public setting. And I think people should know that the man who is believed to be the Pope of the Catholic Church is in fact, or has at least, engaged in idolatry. And if, you know, again, you kind of have to throw it to the Vatican now. He says, okay, no, if there is evidence that exonerates him, or evidence that shows he has repented, well, now you need to come up with it. I'm sorry, you need, it's upon you now to provide that evidence. because the theology behind this Pachamama worship, all this eco-theology, is still around. Not only is it still around, it has since become a supposedly papal encyclical, right? Laudato Si by Francis, 2015. And not only is it some extremely lengthy and tedious text that most people are never going to read, it's something that is constantly applied and celebrated in the Novus Ordo. They have a season of creation that's based on Laudato Si. They have all these projects. That season of creation takes place every year from September 1st through October 4th. So they have over a month dedicated to this environmental eco-theology. And they have these projects. There's the I don't know if I can think of them now off the top of my head. But there's whatever Laudato Si movement. There's a lot of activity associated with implementing that encyclical. So this is not something that was written 10 years, 11 years ago, and now nobody cares anymore. This is something they're continually making use of and are trying to instill into people's minds.
Sure. And I just recently read an article. I don't recall when it was published exactly. It's in the last 6 months to a year. It's in Homiletic and Pastoral Review magazine. It's written by a gentleman who is an eco-theology professor at a Catholic institution. And the article caught my eye because he's making a passionate defense of Catholic Zionism, which this is an article that I'll get to eventually in my writing and speaking. Yeah. But that you make a good point, Mario. This isn't just something that happened 30 years ago that has no impact on life in the Novus Ordo world today. It's very timely, actually.
Yes, and also, and I note this in the Novus Ordo Watch article, Leo XIV, just earlier this year, on January 19th, he appointed a woman to the dicastery as an advisor, I believe it was, to the dicastery of interreligious dialogue. So very relevant. Who believes? Well, let me quote this because it is so insane, and I don't want to get it wrong. So this comes from the website Info Vaticana. I quote it in my article published on Novus Ordo Watch. This is from the article by Info Vaticana. It was published January 21st of this year, and it's about various appointments Leo has made to the Interreligious Dialogue Dicastery. And one of them is, let me see if I can get her name right, Sofia Nicolasa Chipana Quispe. And she is linked to the community of wise women and theologians of Abya Yala, whatever that is, okay? The article says she is associated with indigenous, feminist, and decolonial currents, and that she maintains that she promotes prayer with Pachamama. She also cites a statement from 2025, quote, "We are not Pachamama, we belong to Pachamama," unquote. And I remember looking this up to make sure that I'm not just relying on their say-so, and I did find it exactly as they said. So this woman who believes we belong to Pachamama was just appointed by Leo XIV to the Interreligious Dialogue Dicastery. I mean, what do you say to that?
The fact of the matter is, I can't imagine anyone looking at this and finding it surprising. Look, we have John Paul, the great ecumenist, who we have photographs of him being marked with paint by witch doctors, reverencing a Quran. I mean, this is the MO of the conciliar church, but I think maybe one of the benefits of this story coming out now is maybe it'll be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And some of those people who cumulatively, all these stories add up, and maybe their eyes will be open to say, wait a minute, are these people truly Catholic? Is this institution in Rome today truly the Catholic Church? At a certain point, I would think the weight of this evidence would force some people who are on the fence today to move.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I fear for most, or for a lot of people, that, all these red lines that they had, they've long been crossed, and it somehow, it never matters, for some people. Of course, for others, it does. But considering everything we've seen through, 12 years of Francis, I mean, if that didn't do it, what else are you looking for? Well, probably nothing really, because it's not really about evidence then. It's more like about, what can I live with? Or, I should point out also that, once again, this kind of fits the whole Novus Ordo theology and the whole, post-Vatican II climate, especially in the Vatican, because we have, I have a few more stories here from, for example, one that goes back to 2014. And let me see if maybe you could pull that up. It's the one with Cardinal Gianfranco Ravasi. He was actually caught worshiping Pachamama, participating in a ritual. We got video of it in November of 2014. Okay, so there's actually, I'm going to turn the sound off just because it's so annoying. There's wind and everything. So they're making noise here with their indigenous instruments, and there's Cardinal Ravasi walking with them in a circle around this Pachamama spread in the middle, where they have placed what look to be drink offerings and food. I think I can make out a big zucchini or something similar, fruits and vegetables probably. And so they're banging the drum, and they're all walking around this, and we don't obviously have to watch the whole thing, but eventually here, they all stand, they all stop, and then there's like a leader there who's saying or chanting something through a microphone. And you got Cardinal Ravasi there with his pectoral cross showing, so he's easy to identify. And yeah, did you hear this reported anywhere when this came out?
I'd actually I had seen this video before.
You had seen this, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I saw it on a German language blog, a conservative Novus Ordo semi-traditionalist blog, and probably LifeSite covered it, and maybe some very select few other outlets, but not widely reported. Okay, so I'm just showing this to demonstrate that Pachamama worship by Novus Ordo clergy is unfortunately not all that uncommon. And here we're talking, I mean, this is a cardinal, right? Novus Ordo cardinal. So kind of a big deal, you'd think, right?
Sure. And this
is
even
Argentina, for Novus Ordo
right?
standards, it should be a big deal. This is Argentina, yes.
Okay, so Bergoglio left Argentina in good shape when he made the journey to Rome.
Yeah,
obviously.
Exactly. And, well, I guess Bergoglio knows whom he, I guess you can't really prove that, but the word is that Bergoglio was kind of preparing Prevost to succeed. He was very much hoping that Prevost would succeed him. And if so, then, well, he knows whom he chooses, certainly not someone who's totally at odds with him. Now, there was another incident of Pachamama worship, and I'm going to share that video now. That was in 2022, I believe. Now, interestingly enough, this is on the YouTube channel of the Episcopal Conference of Panama. In other words, the Novus Ordo bishops of Panama themselves have made this video available. And what do we find here? This took place on October 5th, 2022, part of another symposium. It is the 7th Continental Symposium on Indian Theology. And this took place, as we said, in Panama. And what you see there is not only is it the Pachamama worship ceremony, but it does involve 3 cardinals. Now, I'm going to be careful here because it is not clear. I'm not saying that these cardinals are actively participating in it. As far as we can tell, they're just standing there. So, but still, again, it shows that these conferences, they're still around, and they're still including this Mother Earth worship, and even cardinals are at least in attendance, maybe just attending passively, maybe just observing. But again, the point is it's taking place, and others are participating. Now, you probably want to see where the cardinals are, and I'm not quite sure I can easily identify them now, but I have a post on it, and I've identified the individuals. When we're going to put a link to it in the description. Now, here you see some of the things that have been placed in the middle of the ground there, which is part of their Pachamama worship. And so we see these candles there. There's also a censer. You can see incense. Now, that is scary. And this video, interestingly enough, is unlisted. Means you can't find it on YouTube by searching for it. You can only access it if you have the direct link. And so more information about what took place there with documentation is available in the Novus Ordo Watch post. The post is entitled 3 Novus Ordo Cardinals Attend Syncretistic Pagan Worship Ceremony in Panama. And that was published November 17th, 2022. And this one had been reported by the Italian La Nuova Bussola Quotidiana, okay, the Daily Compass in English. And yeah, much more information about this in the Novus Ordo Watch post. So I just wanted to add that there.
Well, you know, Mario, the truth is the church rejects nothing that is good and true in ceremonies such as this.
Yeah, that will be the Vatican II response now, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So actually, you know, a ritual like this and having Catholic clergy involved, so-called Catholic clergy, it's perfectly in keeping with Vatican II's document Nostra Aetate, which heaped praise on the Muslims, the Buddhists, the Hindus by name. You know, why should this be out of bounds? If we can praise the Buddhists for showing men a way to perfect liberation, why can't we do this? I mean, all bets are off now.
Always like to say bad theology has consequences, right?
And it has no lid. Evidently, there is no boundary that it will not cross.
Right. The last thing I'd like to share is, once again, Pachamama was invoked. And this was the Christmas concert at the Vatican in 2019. So interestingly enough, shortly after the Amazon Synod, right? And there is a post on Novus Ordo Watch entitled Getting in Touch with Mother Earth at Vatican Christmas Concert, published December 26th, 2019. And what we see there, and there is a video of it, it was a young indigenous woman that demonstrates how to feel the spirit of Mother Earth. And this took place on December 14th, 2019. And I compiled some video there, rather the relevant part of the video. And that is on YouTube. Again, the link will be in the description. And you see here this woman, and she is, I guess, Quechuan is the right adjective here. This was in the Paul VI Hall, of course. And again, this is to show that Pachamama, this whole eco-theology, Mother Earth, Goddess worship, it's still there, okay? This is not something, oh, well, that was 30 years ago in Brazil. No. This is very, very relevant. So here, what this lady does is she is basically she's telling them about how the Mother Earth goddess is everything to them. In where she's from, I think it's Bolivia, and so she's leading them she's showing them how to get in touch with the Mother Earth goddess, with Pachamama, Echaguaya, I think they call it there, and so she's telling them to put all the attendees to put their hands on their chests like that, in this cross form, and of course they're all joining. They're all doing what they're told, right? The clergy, the bishops, the priests. There's some images there where you can see it very well, and there you go. The children. I mean, this is just so terrible. This is the Vatican. 2019. Okay.
Mario, I don't know if you know this because maybe you do, because you had your Novus Ordo days before your awakening, but you recognize that gesture? So when non-Catholics go up to communion,
when they go up
to,
exactly,
they go up to get their blessing.
Right. This means basically don't give me Holy Communion.
Right. And if you're very lucky, you'll be in the line that is served by Susan on the parish committee. And
there you go. It is also, we might add, it is also very similar to what we see on Bergoglio's pectoral cross. Remember this?
Right here? Yeah.
Yeah, you see.
I guess that's supposed to be Christ entombed. Is that what that is?
This is supposed to be the Good Shepherd. It's more like a demon.
Is there a lamb in there somewhere? Is that?
Well, yeah, supposedly over his shoulders, and that could be a lamb. But you see, the Good Shepherd is never depicted in that way. And I know this is more like something you will find in pagan artifacts like Pharaoh or something, but I don't want to get too far afield now. Maybe we should mention yet another thing before we go, and that is, don't forget that in 2020, the Vatican issued a Pachamama coin, a 10-euro coin. It says Città del Vaticano, right, Vatican City, on it. The Vatican routinely mints coins. That's normal. But this one has an image of Gaia or Pachamama. Okay. And you can see it there. Pachamama is often portrayed as a very pregnant woman who you can see her hair is kind of, how would you describe that? Those are essentially ears of corn. Did I lose you?
No, I'm with you.
No, okay. And
I'm speechless, Mario.
Yeah, speechless, exactly. And there is, you can see the woman is pregnant, but it looks like she's pregnant with the planet Earth, right? The Vatican minted these coins in 2020. I know it's so hard to believe, but it is true. It's all documented. See it for yourself at novusordowatch.org.
And for an encore, didn't they in 2021, they minted a coin of the COVID vaccine? I think.
Yes, I think you're right.
And so they cover all bases. You can have one of each coins. One will help you lose your spiritual life. The other will help you lose your earthly life. And
there you go. Perfect. Yes.
Perfect. Beautiful.
Yeah. It is a hellhole. It's unbelievable.
So I think one of the takeaways from everything we talked about, Mario, is that this thing, as scandalous as it is, and it's a breaking story, it's only breaking because we didn't know about it, but it's perfectly in keeping with everything the Novus Ordo Church does. Perfectly in keeping. Nothing about it is, stunning or, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that. No, I find it perfectly, logical that they do that.
And you actually do see people online saying, yeah, big deal. What's wrong with that? Yeah, speechless is really what you end up with. But I would say, pay close attention to the reactions you're seeing and see how far gone the average Novus Ordo already is. If you shrug at this, there's really something wrong.
Yeah, something terribly wrong. And not to defend that in any way, shape, or form, but I think the takeaway ought to be when we witness that is this is what happened to these poor people simply for believing that this series of men in white, since the council closed, Paul VI on forward to today, are their Holy Father, their rule of faith, their father, their teacher, their guide. And this is where they've been led. Of course, our Lord will judge perfectly who's there because they really want to be there and don't want to find and seek and live in the truth. But I think there's a lot of victims there too, that people who just, they've never known anything else called the Catholic Church.
Yeah, right.
And this is what they have to show for it.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Well, Mario, I commend you for all the good work that you do it every day, but you did a terrific job in putting your ducks in a row and getting the receipts ready on this particular story. Well
Thank
done.
you very much. Thank you for having me on, Louis, and God have mercy.
Indeed. All right. Well, thank you for joining me, Mario, and until next time, and I hope that next time is very soon.
Okay. God bless.
God bless you.